Michael Turner believed his life had settled into its final shape. At 46, he woke before the alarm, drove the same roads, greeted the same faces at work, and returned to a quiet home that felt orderly and safe. Seattle's gray mornings no longer bothered him. He had learned how to move through days without asking too much from them. Yet somewhere between routine meetings and silent dinners, something inside him began to press gently like a thought. That refused to leave. He noticed it first on an ordinary evening. Rain touched the windows, the city glowing faintly beyond the glass. Michael stood in his kitchen, holding a cup of coffee he did not need. The house was too quiet. Not lonely, just empty in a way that felt unfinished. He realized then that comfort had slowly replaced curiosity and stability had taken the place of desire. It surprised him how much that realization hurt. Michael had once believed that wanting things strongly belonged to youth. He thought age softened those edges, made people more careful, less hopeful. But now the opposite seemed true. The urge to feel something real, something chosen, had grown sharper. It was no longer wild or reckless. It was steady and clear, like a voice that had waited patiently to be heard. Across the city. Emily Carter closed her classroom door after the last student left. She stood for a moment, listening to the hallway fade into silence. Teaching literature had given her a habit of looking beneath words, searching for meaning hidden between lines. At 42, she carried her past gently, not as a burden, but as a lesson. Her marriage had ended without anger, only understanding. Still, love had left its mark. Emily walked home through familiar streets, the late afternoon light resting softly on buildings and trees. She enjoyed small things, now warm bread from the bakery, the sound of pages turning, the calm of evenings spent with her thoughts. Yet there were moments when she felt a quiet longing, not for what was lost, but for something not yet known. Age had not taken away her hope. It had made it more careful, more patient. Their paths crossed again at a bookstore reopening downtown. It was a small place, filled with old shelves and the smell of paper and time. Michael had not planned to go. Something had simply pulled him there after work. Emily arrived alone, curious and unhurried, drawn by the promise of familiar stories waiting to be rediscovered. They saw each other near the back, between rows of used novels for a second. Neither spoke. They recognized each other from years ago, from brief conversations that never went anywhere. Back then, life had been crowded with other plans. Now, the moment felt different. Not louder, not brighter, just deeper. They greeted each other with polite smiles that slowly warmed into something easier. Words came without effort. They spoke about books they loved, about how the city had changed, about work and quiet frustrations. The conversation flowed naturally, as if it had only been paused, not delayed by time. Michael noticed how Emily's eyes softened when she listened. Emily noticed how Michael spoke with care, choosing words like someone who understood their weight. There was no rush, no attempt to impress, just attention. That simple presence felt rare around them. People moved and laughed, but the noise faded. Michael felt something open inside him, a door he had kept closed without realizing it. Emily felt the same gentle shift, like standing at the edge of a memory she had not yet lived. They did not talk about feelings. They did not need to. What passed between them was quiet and strong, built on recognition rather than fantasy. It felt honest, and that honesty made it powerful. When the event ended, they stood outside under the evening sky. Streetlights flickered on, and the air smelled of rain. There was a pause, small, meaningful. Michael wanted to ask for more time. Emily wanted to stay. But both hesitated, guided by years of learning when to move and when to wait. They exchanged a simple goodbye, promises left unspoken. Michael watched Emily walk away, her figure slowly blending into the crowd. Something tightened in his chest knot. Pain, but awareness. He knew this meeting would not fade easily. That night, Michael drove home in silence. The radio stayed off. Thoughts filled the space instead. He realized how long it had been since someone made him feel awake in this way. Not excited in a careless sense, but present. He sat in his parked car longer than usual, hands resting on the steering wheel, staring at nothing in particular. At home, Emily placed her coat on the chair and opened a book she had bought earlier. She read the same page again and again, her mind elsewhere. Images of the evening returned, simple moments replayed with unexpected clarity. She wondered why this meeting felt important when nothing dramatic had happened. Sleep came slowly to both of them. Each lay awake, listening to the night. Feeling something began to form without knowing its shape. In the days that followed, Michael noticed changes in himself. He paid more attention to small things. The sound of footsteps behind him, the color of the sky during his commute, the quiet hope he carried into the morning. Work felt the same, yet he moved through it differently. As if something meaningful waited beyond the usual end of the day. Emily found herself writing more in her journal. Not about the past, but about questions. What did it mean to want again? Was desire something to be feared or something to be respected? She understood now that age did not weaken feeling. It refined it. They met again by chance at a cafe near the waterfront. This time, the greeting was warmer, the smiles easier. They spoke longer, sitting across from each other as cups cooled between them. The city moved outside the window, but time slowed at the table. Michael felt a steady pull toward Emily, not demanding, not urgent. It felt like choosing a path that had always been there. Emily felt safe in his presence, and that safety allowed her heart to lean forward instead of holding back. Neither of them called it attraction aloud. But it lived in the pauses, in the careful way they said goodbye, in the hope that the next meeting would come soon. As weeks passed, these small encounters became threads, weaving quietly into their lives. Each meeting added depth, not confusion. They learned about each other's habits, their values, their disappointments. They shared laughter that came easily and silence that felt comfortable. Michael understood that his growing urge was not about escape or regret. It was about alignment. About wanting a life that reflected who he had become. Emily understood that. Longing did not mean weakness. It meant she was still open, still willing to feel. One evening, standing alone on his balcony, Michael looked out at the city lights and accepted a truth he could no longer deny. Age had not taken his desire away. It had given it purpose. Somewhere across the city, Emily closed her journal and held it against her chest. She felt the same truth settle inside her, calm and certain. Neither of them knew where this path would lead, but both understood that something important had already begun, quietly and without force. And once awakened, such an urge does not disappear. Michael and Emily did not plan their next meeting, yet it happened as if the city itself arranged it. They ran into each other at the waterfront on a late afternoon when the sky held a soft gold color. Boats moved slowly and people passed without, noticing the quiet shift taking place between two lives. This time there was no surprise, only a calm sense of arrival. They walked side by side, keeping pace without effort. Conversation came easily, moving from work to memories, from light jokes to thoughtful pauses. Michael spoke about the pressure he felt to keep everything stable, how he had built a life that looked right but sometimes felt unfinished. Emily listened closely, not trying to fix anything, just allowing his words to exist. Emily shared her own truths. She spoke about teaching, about watching students search for meaning, about how she once believed love was something that happened only once. She admitted that losing it had taught her how strong she could be, but also how careful. Michael heard the honesty in her voice and respected the courage it took to speak it aloud. As they walked, the distance between them felt smaller, though neither crossed it. Desire lived there, quiet and patient, did not rush their steps or cloud their minds. It asked only to be noticed. They stopped near the edge of the water. The air was cool, carrying the sound of distant waves. For a moment, neither spoke. The silence felt full, not empty. Michael felt the urge to reach out, to make his feelings visible. Emily felt it too, standing close enough to sense his presence clearly. "It's strange," Emily said softly. "How?" "Some feelings grow stronger when you don't chase them." Michael nodded. "Maybe they grow because they're real." That truth stayed with them as they parted that evening. There was no promise, no decision, yet both returned home changed, carrying a quiet understanding that something meaningful was unfolding. Days passed quickly after that. Messages replaced chance meetings. Simple notes, thoughtful questions, shared thoughts about the day. Each message built connection without pressure. Michael found himself smiling at his phone more often than he expected. Emily noticed how his words stayed with her long after she read them. They began to see each other regularly, choosing calm places, parks, quiet cafes, bookshops. These meetings were not dramatic, they were steady. Each one added clarity rather than confusion. They learned each other's rhythms, their humor, their boundaries. Michael admired Emily's strength, how she balanced warmth with independence. Emily admired Michael's calm presence, the way he paid attention without trying to control the moment. Traction deepened, shaped by respect. Still, hesitation remained. Michael worried about disrupting the life he had built. Emily worried about opening her heart too far, too fast. Age had taught them both that some choices carry lasting weight. One evening, they attended a small gathering hosted by mutual friends. Laughter filled the room, and music played softly in the background. Standing among others, Michael and Emily shared glances that spoke quietly of connection. Others noticed something forming, but did not name it. Later, as the night thinned and people began to leave, Michael walked Emily to her car. The street was calm, the city resting around them. They stopped beside the door, the moment stretching gently. "I feel like we're standing at a line," Emily said, her voice steady, "and I don't want to cross it without knowing why." Michael respected that honesty. "I don't want to rush you, or myself." They shared a small smile, one filled with understanding. The choice to wait felt right. Desire did not disappear because they paused. It grew deeper, shaped by intention. In the weeks that followed, life tested their patience. Work grew demanding. Old responsibilities pulled at them. There were moments when distance felt heavy, yet they did not pull away. Instead, they spoke, openly choosing honesty over fear. Emily had moments of doubt late at night, wondering if she was risking too much. Michael had moments of uncertainty, questioning if he deserved this new beginning. But each time they met, those doubts softened. One night, they attended a public reading at the same bookstore where they had first reconnected. Sitting side by side, listening to stories about love and loss, they felt the weight of their own journey reflected in the words. Michael glanced at Emily, noticing the way she leaned forward slightly, fully present. Emily felt his gaze and turned, meeting his eyes without hesitation. Afterward, they walked outside under the glow of streetlights. The city hummed quietly. Michael stopped walking, taking a slow breath. "I don't want to keep pretending this doesn't matter," he said. "You matter." Emily felt the words settle in her chest. She did not respond immediately. Instead, she reached for his hand. The touch was gentle, deliberate. It felt like a decision made without fear. They stood there, hand in hand, not needing more. That simple connection carried all the emotion they had been holding carefully for weeks. From that night on, their bond shifted. They did not rush into labels or promises. They allowed the connection to grow naturally. Dinners became longer. Walks stretched into late evenings. They spoke about the future carefully, leaving room for possibility without forcing certainty. Michael felt lighter, more aligned with himself than he had in years. Emily felt open, not vulnerable in a painful way, but alive. Desire no longer felt like something to manage or resist. It felt like a guide, pointing them toward honesty. They faced moments of fear together. Michael shared concerns about change. Emily shared worries about loss. Instead of stepping back, they leaned in, trusting the foundation they were building. One afternoon, standing by the water again, Emily spoke a truth she had carried quietly. "I used to think wanting something deeply was dangerous." Michael squeezed her hand gently. "I think it's dangerous only when we ignore it." That realization became their shared strength. They understood that desire, when shaped by care, did not lead to harm. It led to clarity. As seasons changed, so did they. What began as quiet recognition grew into steady commitment. Not loud, not rushed, but chosen daily through actions and honesty. They did not claim to know the future, but they knew this. The urge to follow what truly matters does not fade with time. It becomes wiser. It waits for courage, and when answered with patience, it opens the door to a love that feels earned, grounded, and real.